Hello everybody, another day, another video, but today we are going to be talking about two very special bears. So let's get into it. Let's go. Alright, so we got Icecrusher and Ironhide. Now aesthetically both bears look pretty cool, but I prefer Icecrusher over Ironhide. I just think maybe the Wolverine claws with the blue effects and the overall color palette just looks really good for Icecrusher, so I will pick him over Ironhide when it comes to aesthetics. Now when it comes to abilities, I'll say Ironhide's the better champion. But you can see right here, they got low speed, very good defense, their attack is pretty low, and their HP is decent, but they are defense type champions, so of course they're going to have a higher base stat when it comes to defense. And yeah, overall their stats aren't too bad for epics. They're on the slower side, but I'm sure we could work around that. So let's get into their gearing and masteries and skills. Alright, so let's start off with Ironhide. So his A1 attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance, which could be booked up to 50% chance of increasing the cooldown of one of the target's skill by one turn at random. So there is a little bit RNG involved, but regardless though, having your cooldowns increase, you already know, can be very annoying and can either make or break that battle, right? So this A1, especially paired up with a counter champion, which will increase the chance of him placing this on your targets, is just very disruptive. So solid A1, a little bit RNG based, can't count on it, but can be very useful. So looking at his A2, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance of decreasing the turn meter by 5%, and if the target is under decreased attack, it will be decreased by 10%. So his A1 messes up your cooldowns. His A2 makes it a lot harder for you to actually get a turn. So you can see right here, his A1 and A2 has very good synergy. Very annoying champion to face off with, right? So looking at his A3, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing the good decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, can be booked up to 100%. So also a little fun fact, where to go, Skinwalker. So as of now, he is also the other champion that has decreased attack, and which also, like, this champion is going to be like a lot harder to pull, right? But you could get him kind of easy depending on your battle pass situation, but it's only those two champions and Skinwalkers that actually have decreased attack. So in faction wars, this champion is mega useful. You can see that his kit's already pretty disruptive, and having that decreased attack is a huge win for Skinwalkers when it comes to faction wars. All right, and then his passive, each hit has a 50% chance of decreasing target's turn meter by 7.5%. Also, each hit has a 50% chance of putting one of the target's skills on cooldown if the target is under decreased crit rate, which pairs nicely with, I'm not sure if this is his brother, friend, whatever, but these two work together, right? But anyways, that is his skills. And also, let me show you guys something real quick just to make this a little bit easier. So check this out. Alright, so I wanted to show you guys this clip so you could see him in action with his passive. So every time he actually hits an enemy, they get that decreased turn meter, right? You can see right there, boom, he got it twice, he has it one time. And also, when you heard that noise, that sharp little bell sounding noise, that is the noise of a cooldown being increased, okay? You can also see like a stopwatch kind of thing appear above their heads when they get that increased cooldown. So the sound's a good indicator, and also that visual aid does help. So yeah, just want to put that out there. So let's go and look at his masteries. Alright, so let's talk about masteries. So for this champion, I feel like masteries are pretty simple, only because you cannot really use them in clan boss. Yes, you can use decreased attack for clan boss, but overall though, his kit is not really, he is really not a clan boss champion. He is more of a faction war champion, campaign type champion that could really help you out in faction wars, just because one of the biggest things about this champion is that he has decreased attack on a AoE, and he's one of the two in Skin Wars, I mean not Skin Wars, Skinwalkers that actually has that ability. So this dude is a fantastic faction war champion, and when we're trying to do masteries for faction wars, I feel like this is pretty perfect. You just go down this line, make your way to War Master, because he attacks either once or twice throughout his kit, right? So War Master is the ideal choice. And for support side, I think this is pretty much perfect. You go down the accuracy line and you get Psycho Magic just to, get that 5% chance every turn to get a random cooldown decreased on a skill, which could be clutch and very useful. Evil Eye even further decreases the target's turn meter when the champion attacks with their default skill for the first time. So this is a very, very useful mastery to get that upper hand. Sniper increases the chance of placing any debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%. So you could use this to, maybe throw on some stun sets or whatever, just because his, let's see, this is A3, attacks all enemies. And yes, this can be booked up to 100%, and also this could be booked up to 100%, but his A1 doesn't go to 100%, so having that extra 5% could be like, very, very useful, and could make a huge difference, because sometimes just going over that threshold by a little bit makes a huge difference. So I feel like this is sniper is a very good choice. And obviously we want to do Master Hexer, because the longer we could extend those debuffs, the better it will be for us overall, especially with decreased attack. Decreased attack is a very useful debuff. So for Ironhide, his masteries, I feel like it's pretty simple. I feel like this is very solid for faction wars. You could maybe do defensive side, but Ironhide and his counterpart is really not a DPS. They don't do a lot of DPS, so I think the offensive side is more beneficial for the overall team composition to flush out your champion. So yeah, this is pretty much his masteries. And finally, artifacts. So I think this champion will mostly benefit from Relentless set with some speed stats on it, because the quicker this guy goes, the more disruption he could cause on the other team, right? So if this guy's not taking his turns, his kit's really useless, because his passive is when he attacks, his A1 is when he attacks, especially his A2, all that stuff. Like, the quicker this guy could be, the more he's going to provide for your team. So I feel like giving him Relentless set with speed stats. I have Immortal as his secondary stat artifact set, but you could probably put speed or something like that, just really up to you. But yeah, definitely give this guy lots of speed, lots of defense, because he is I think all his attacks are based on defense. Yeah, so you want to focus mainly on definitely speed and defense, and some accuracy, because without accuracy you're not going to land his decreased attack. So give him some accuracy. His HP, not too bad. His attack, I wouldn't worry about it too much. His defense is okay. His speed is not too bad. Crit rate would be ideal for this champion, since he's going to be going so fast. You might as well give him some crit rate, crit damage, so he could do some more, have more DPS output. But overall though, I think for this champion, where you really want to focus is his speed and defensive stats, and give him decent accuracy, so that way he can land those debuffs, right? So that's how I will build him out. Okay, so that covers Ironhide. So now let's move over to Icecrusher. All right, so let's talk about Icecrusher. So Icecrusher is pretty much the same type of champion as Ironhide, but he does things a little bit different. And he does it with his A1, which attacks one enemy, has a 10% chance of placing a block cooldown skill debuff for one turn. This could be bucked up to a 30% chance. And having something like this on his A1 is pretty cool, because let's say you have a counterattack champion, you get counterattack on Icecrusher, each opposing member attacks you, and there's a chance to place that block cooldown on their whole team, right? So this could be very disruptive and is a very solid A1. Now looking at his A2, it attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased crit rate debuff for 2 turns, could be booked up to 100% chance. And this is that new debuff that's been introduced, decreased crit rate, which is very helpful, because if the enemy can't crit on you, then it's huge damage mitigation, right? Now I wouldn't say it's better than decreased attack, but this can work with decreased attack, and having decreased crit rate can overall just help your teammates survive much longer, right? And I'll show examples of this later in the video, but that's pretty much the theme of his A2. Now looking at his passive, decreases the damage of all allies received from critical hits by 15%, and this also fills this champion's turn meter by 5% whenever enemy lands a normal, strong, or weak hit. So pretty much he gets a speed boost for not getting crit, and he also helps his allies receive decrease the damage from all crit hits by 15%. So this champion is a huge damage mitigator, I guess, and his brother is more of a huge ability mitigator, and having this decreased attack, which is huge damage decrease. So these two bears work very well together, so the synergy here is really good. And also, since we're talking about that, I feel like Plarium likes to release champions kind of like in a set, right? Because if you look at this guy here, he has decreased crit damage, and where's it at? This polar bear has decreased crit rate, right? So if you have these three champions in a team, which I'll show later, it's gonna be very slow damage output, but your survivability goes through the roof, right? Because you got strength and increased defense. So yeah, Plarium, I feel like, likes to release things in a set and maybe like get a basis for it, for them to add on to these new debuffs. So it's just my little theory, not proven. But anyways, back to Icecrusher. So his masteries is exactly the same as Ironhide. You see right here, they're exactly the same for pretty much the same reasons as I mentioned for Ironhide. Okay, so nothing new. Pretty much same thing will work pretty good for Icecrusher. So for his artifacts though, so they are both defense based. All their damage is on defense based. Oh, I never noticed that. So he only, oh never mind. His A2 attacks on enemies, but it's not based on anything, I guess. But his A1's based on defense. Not sure. But anyways, his artifacts. So I pretty much just gave him a lot of HP and used the accuracy set to boost up his accuracy a little bit. But yeah, immortal set, accuracy set. And I'm just showing you his stats, his rings, etc, etc, right? So pretty much almost identical to Ironhide. You really want to just give him some HP. Don't worry about the attack too much. Give him really good defense and give him really good speed. And then this crit rate is much better, right? The high, like if you could afford good crit rate, please give him good crit rate and crit damage, because this is where the damage is going to come. So this is always like an excellent bonus stats for these champions, and definitely needs some accuracy because of his debuffs, right? But mainly though, you want to give him speed, defense, pretty much the same build as Ironhide. They're pretty identical. They just do things a little bit different. But anyways, so this is Icecrusher. So now that you met the two bears, let's go and see them in action. Alright, so we are in Dragons 20, and I think this is the best way to showcase the bears, because you can see they're doing decreased attack, they're doing turn meter reduction, right? They're doing a lot of damage mitigation, not only by giving them debuffs, but also not letting the opposing team to even get a turn or use their special abilities. So this allows the squishier champions like Reveiw, Venus, and Royal Guard to able to do their thing. So we have no healers in this group. It's just all purely squishy offensive champions, and the bears are pretty tough. But usually though, if you've been playing this game for a while, you know that your attackers get killed, and by the time you get to the boss, you have less DPS and your whole team wipes. So I think this is a good way to use the bears. Like having this kind of mindset for them really helps. So yeah, with that being said, let's fast forward to the end and see what we get. Alright, here we go. It's about to go down, and boom. So that's a clear, not too bad, a minute 38. But let's check them out in Faction Wars. So this is where these bears shine. So we're going to replace 2 legendaries for 2 epics, right? And we're going to be a lot more successful in stage 16 for Skinwalkers in Faction Wars, because these two bears bring something that the Skinwalker factions did not have, and it was decreased attack and all the little damage mitigations and turn meter manipulation, cooldown manipulations that these bears could bring to the table. And it really helps because yes, in the game we had decreased attack and turn meter manipulation, etc, etc. Those did exist, but we did not have that in Skinwalkers. So this is where they're really good, and this is something that Skinwalkers really needed. So that's a huge win, like we said earlier, for this faction. And pretty much, like, honestly, these bears aren't bad. They're not horrible epics or anything like that. Ironhide is the better one out of the two, I will have to say, but we have these type of champions already, so they're not really bringing nothing new to the table, but they are bringing tons of usefulness in faction wars for Skinwalkers. So I think that's really where they shine. Like, we could use them in the arena, but I don't think they're gonna be in-game viable. They're probably just gonna end up being more early to mid-game, right? So they do help, and you can use any champions everywhere, but if I had to say, hey, this is where we're going to use a champion, this is where they must be at, this is their A+ scenario, it will have to be faction wars. Alright, so let's wrap this video up with some arena footage. So how do I feel about these bears? I kind of like these bears because they bring some utility and uniqueness to the game, but if I have to be honest, I don't think they bring anything too special where they're going to change the meta or even make it a lot easier for you in this game. Like, they're not going to help too much in Spiders 20, they're not going to help a ton in Fire Knight. I mean, they're going to be good for campaign, they're going to be good for Dragons 20, things like that that are a lot simpler for the game, right? But when we're talking about hard in-game content, they're just lacking that punch, right, to get you through that. So I don't think they're bad champions, but they're not that great of a champion. But they are gladly welcomed into this game because we really needed these champions for faction wars, because Skinwalker, their roster was kind of hurting. So having these two bears in Skinwalker faction definitely helps out a ton. So at least we got that. But overall though, after spending a little time with these bears, I don't think they're too great. But you can see right here though, having that block cooldown, block skills is pretty annoying. So there's potential, but it's gonna be a tough one. So with that being said, guys, this is the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.